Coming up today, as a new UN office opens in Seoul to monitor human rights violations in North Korea, Pyongyang announces 2 South Koreans have been sentenced to life with hard labor for spying on the regime. US President Barack Obama extends US sanctions against North Korea for another year, describing the threat posed by the regime as unusual and extraordinary. Plus, as the outbreak seems to be abating, Korea's first MERS patient could be announced MERS-free today after a primary test found him negative. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, June 24th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning. The long-awaited UN Human Rights Office opened in Seoul on Tuesday to document North Korea's abuses. Officials say the office will build a record so the North Korean leadership can eventually be brought to account for its crimes against humanity. Hwang Sang-hee starts us off.
The UN opened the doors of a field office in Seoul on Tuesday, aimed at monitoring the dire human rights situation in North Korea. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein said the new office promises to take the United Nations human rights system to the next level.
The Seoul office will monitor and document human rights issues in the DPRK, building on the landmark work of the Commission of Inquiry and Special Rapporteur. We firmly believe this will help lay the basis for future accountability.
The setup of the office was just one of the recommendations of a groundbreaking UN report published in February of last year. The report brought widespread attention to the rampant human rights violations in the north, including torture, starvation, and forced abortions. The field office in Seoul is expected to serve as a bridge between the international community and civic groups to strengthen collective efforts against the abuses. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se expressed hopes that it will contribute to bringing ultimate freedom to people in the north.
As we open the North Korea Human Rights Office, let us work together so that one day the people of North Korea will come to enjoy the same equality, dignity, and freedom they so rightly deserve.
The new office, however, is expected to deal a heavy blow to inter-Korean relations. North Korea has slammed its opening, calling it an unpardonable provocation and warned of starting a war against it. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
2 South Koreans detained in North Korea have been sentenced to life behind bars. North Korea's state-run Korean Central Television reported Tuesday that Kim Guk-gi and Choi Chung-gil were found guilty of spying on the regime under South Korean orders and sentenced to life with hard labor. South Korea's unification ministry slammed the ruling, calling it an unjustified action that flies in the face of international humanitarian values. Pyongyang announced the men had been arrested in March, accusing them of acting under orders from South Korea's National Intelligence Service from the Chinese border city of Dandong. 2 more South Korean nationals, a missionary and a university student, are still detained in the north. The US government has extended executive orders imposing sanctions on North Korea for another year, describing the communist nation as an unusual and extraordinary threat. President Barack Obama notified Congress this week of his decision to extend the sanctions that would have expired on Friday, citing the North's continued nuclear weapons program, its actions that imperil US forces and its allies, and other provocative and repressive policies. The sanctions, which freeze North Korean assets and prohibits US citizens from owning North Korean registered vessels, has been extended every year since it was first put into effect in 2008. Thursday marks 65 years since North Korean troops, supported by China and the Soviet Union, invaded South Korea and started the Korean War. To this day, the Koreas are still technically at war, as evidenced by the mass of troops lining each side of the border. The division of the Koreas has also prevented thousands of families from seeing each other. Connie Kim reports.
About 1.5 kilometers from where I'm standing is North Korean territory. It seems close, but it's been like another world for more than 60 years, as Korea is still the world's only divided country. The Korean peninsula remains visibly split by heavily secured barbed wire fences that stretch nearly 250 kilometers across a general post, the buffer zone between the south and the north. It stands as a disheartening symbol of the country's separation ever since the Armistice Agreement was signed in 1953. Nam Tae-won, like his father, has been guarding Korea's demilitarized zone.
My grandfather participated in the Korean War and my father served at the GOP, so I feel a strong sense of responsibility to guard the borderline.
The reality that families torn apart by the war remain separated even though they live on the same land is still hard to accept to this day. Kyung Sun-bong, who for the past 41 years has been living in the Unification Village, located just behind the DMZ, says this is the closest she can get to her hometown in North Korea.
I moved here because I wanted to be close to the north, but time has passed by so quickly, I don't know if the two Koreas will reunify before I die.
Fleeing with her uncle to the south the year after the war broke out, she never imagined she would ever see her parents, her brothers, and sisters again.
If reunification comes, I want to go visit my hometown first. I don't know if I'll find my younger brothers there, but I want to walk the streets of my village. I can still vividly remember the roads of my town.
More than 129,000 South Koreans are registered as having separated families in the north. Only about half are still alive today, desperately waiting to see their loved ones one last time. Connie Kim, Arirang News, Paju.
So as we just saw there, families separated by the Korean War wait in increasingly desperate anticipation to see their long-lost relatives one last time. They all hang on to the hope that the two governments can put their differences aside for a while and restart reunions. Our Kim Hyun-bin met with one separated family member to hear her story.
I went through countless restless nights thinking about my family and hometown. It all comes back to me suddenly.
65 years have passed since the start of the Korean War. But 86-year-old Pyongyang Suk is still searching for her lost siblings in the north. She was separated from her family in Hwanghae-do province in North Korea when she was 18 years old, just a week before the Korean War began on June 25, 1950. Decades have passed, but Pyeon has yet to hear any news of her two younger brothers and sister in North Korea.
Unification is my sincerest wish. I want to visit my hometown. I'm over 80 years old, so I don't have much longer to live. Hopefully Korea will be unified. I just want to find out if my siblings are still alive.
Pyeon settled down in Seoul after the war and started her own family, now a proud grandmother. But the thought of her siblings bring her to tears even today. Pyeon is one of tens of thousands of separated family members here in Korea, desperate to hear any news of their families. Since 2000, there were 19 reunions of separated families between the two Koreas. But it all came to a halt in February of 2014, as tensions between the two countries have escalated. There are roughly 130,000 listed as separated family members in South Korea. But time is of the essence, as nearly half are no longer alive. Around 67,000 separated family members are still alive, desperately waiting for inter-Korean relations to improve, so they might have a chance to reunite with their long-lost family members once again.
I hope the South Korean government will put more interest towards the separated families. They are not concerned about us these days. There is no news about separated families in the media, nor is the government doing anything about it.
Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Shifting gears now to the latest developments on the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Korea, and the country is continuing to make progress in its ongoing battle against the spread of the virus, which has shown signs of abating since last weekend. More patients are recovering from MERS, including the patient's first confirmed patient. The 68-year-old patient 0, who was diagnosed on May 20th after returning from a trip to Saudi Arabia, is expected to be pronounced MERS-free on this Wednesday if his final test results come back negative. He did test negative in a first round of tests on Tuesday. Now, as of now, a total of 54 patients, or 31% of the 175 infected patients in the country, have gone on to make full recoveries. 94 patients are currently being treated, with 17 listed as unstable. And the MERS outbreak continues to dominate the ongoing parliamentary interpellation session at the National Assembly. Both parties were united in their criticism of the government's failure to contain the virus in the early stages. Park Ji-won reports.
Facing a barrage of criticism at Tuesday's interpellation session, Health Minister Moon Hyung-pyo apologized for the government's failure to swiftly deal with the outbreak during the initial stages.
The public's concerns are growing daily due to the MERS outbreak. As health minister, what would you like to say to the public?
I'm very sorry that the ministry has failed to swiftly stabilize the situation in the early stages. The ministry did not have enough information about the disease at that time.
The minister said the government referred to a simple manual distributed by World Health Organization in the initial stages, failing to take Korea's unique hospital culture into consideration, which caused the virus to spread quickly. The health minister added that officials have taken measures to prevent the further spread of the virus, including shutting down entire hospital wards when necessary. However, former presidential candidate and former chairman of the main opposition An Chol-soo pressed the minister to step down from his post.
Don't you have any intentions to resign from your post voluntarily?
I am not avoiding responsibility in any way, but I think now is the time for me to carry out my duties to quickly contain the current MERS situation.
Government measures to counter the drought in the nation's eastern and central regions, estimated to be the most severe in 42 years, as well as urgent educational tasks like expanding the nation's childcare services, were other topics of the session. The 4-day interpellation session will conclude on Wednesday, with its final session to focus mainly on the nation's political issues. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, time is running out for the remaining Korean survivors of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement to receive a formal apology from Tokyo, so they are taking legal action. 10 victims and 2 family members of deceased victims plan to file a $20 million lawsuit in a U.S. court in July against the Japanese government, Japanese firms, and a Japanese newspaper accused of breaching their human rights. The head lawyer in the case said the Kono and Murayama statements, both landmark apologies for Japan's actions during World War II, have been repeatedly distorted or scaled down during each change of Japan's governing administration. However, the group says it is willing to withdraw its suit if Tokyo issues an apology and compensates the victims. The World Expo in Milan is now into its second month. There, more than 140 participating countries celebrate a national day to highlight a country's food culture and raise awareness about nutritional problems. Korea celebrated its National Day on Tuesday local time. Na Hyung-young reports.
The flags of Korea and Italy are raised, declaring the National Day of Korea at the 2015 Milan World Expo. This year, under the theme of Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life, the focus is on sharing innovative ideas, and Korea has been doing its share by suggesting Korean food, or 한식, as an exemplary solution for a sustainable future.
한식 brings with it not only the Latin principle of a healthy mind in a healthy body, but also the ability to evolve over time to adapt to different needs and criteria of sustainability.
The Korea Pavilion at the Expo has built up a reputation as being a spectator favorite. It has attracted an average of 13,000 visitors a day since its opening in May, surpassing the 500,000 mark earlier this month. And with improvements in the pavilion highlighting the country's unique reform movements to overcome poverty, Korean officials hope to help the global community sustain food security and bring people together.
I also hope that the Milan Expo and Korea Day will help strengthen not only Korea and Italy's 130 years of bilateral ties, but also the friendship that visitors from all over the world share.
Along with the OECD, Korea will also hold a one-day conference here at the Expo on Wednesday local time to discuss the importance of food as a crucial link to branding and boosting economic growth through tourism. 나현경, Arirang News, Milan.
Well, those have been the stories we have been following on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news, and do download our smartphone application. Just search for Arirang TV. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.